What's up guys, it's that time once again where I recount the notable things I've done in the past month. May was a very busy month for me, so we have a few things to get through today. As always, feel free to sit back and relax and put this in the background while you do something else. And a reminder to everyone that the goal for 2021 is to hit 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and with your help I know we can do it. So remember to leave a like and subscribe, it's a massive help. With that out the way, let's talk about what I've been up to in May 2021. Let's start with talking about the Digimon Vital Bracelet. For those that may not know, the latest Digivice / virtual pet devices are fitness watches. You raise a Digimon from birth all the way to his mega stage on the watch itself, and it's all done by being physically active and having an increased heart rate. In order to evolve a Digimon, you need to do a combination of walking, mini training missions like crunches or sprinting, and winning battles. After you've accumulated enough trophies from missions, steps, and wins, your Digimon evolves. It's a pretty cool concept, and I was really excited to finally get my hands on one, especially since I do my best to keep active despite living a life mostly spent indoors. Well, did it live up to my expectations? Well, mostly. The main thing anyone who's interested in the Vital Bracelet should know is what kind of experience you're getting. As I said, you're raising a Digimon, but it's all done through exercise, so it's not a very hands-on experience like other virtual pets. If you're okay with that and still have an interest, then go for it. After spending a month with the device, I still enjoy it, but I do feel there needs to be a bit more to do with your Digimon, especially given the price point of the Vital Bracelet itself. The biggest flaw with the Vital Bracelet is something that in my opinion is unacceptable in 2021, and that's the fact the heart rate reader has trouble reading the heart rate of people with darker skin. It's not accurate by any stretch of the imagination already, but the fact they didn't even take into consideration that not everyone is pale is baffling to me, especially since you can't even use it without your heart rate being measured. Thankfully there's a workaround of taping a white piece of paper or a napkin on the sensor, but the fact this has to be done at all is unacceptable. My only other complaint is that the bracelet itself feels a little cheap, and while I've taken care of mine, the plastic does scratch very easily. Now, I know I just listed off a bunch of negatives, but I have overall enjoyed my time with the Vital Bracelet, and I don't regret the money I spent on it. I've raised 2 different Digimon so far, and it's a fun excuse to get up and be active. Plus, just having a Digimon on your wrist wherever you go is kinda cool. I think the potential for the device is pretty vast, and I hope they continue to expand its functionality in the future via the companion app. I don't regret buying my Vital Bracelet, and the fact putting it on has become a normal part of my morning routine probably says it all. Keeping with the theme of Digimon, I finally decided to give Digimon World Next Order another chance. I originally got this game a couple years ago for like $5 due to a price error and loaded it up for like an hour before losing interest and playing something else. But with me being heavy back into Digimon with me attaining the Vital Bracelet and also watching a new anime, I decided it was the perfect time to sit down and properly give the game a fair chance. And I'm glad I did, because after taking the time to understand and appreciate Next Order for what it is, I haven't been able to put it down. Despite being Digimon, a franchise aimed towards a younger audience, this game is hard. Like, stupid hard if you don't know what you're doing. You see, it's a pet raising sim similar to the original Digimon world. You have to train Digimon, let them go to the bathroom, and they eventually die and are reborn. And the game really doesn't do a good job of explaining the optimal way to raise your Digimon, so unaware players are likely to get destroyed a lot by random Digimon. But I read a million tips and tutorials, and after a while, the game finally just clicked and I've been super into it. I don't have too much else to say about this one, other than that I think I'll use it as a reminder that sometimes for whatever reason it's not the right time for you to experience something, and giving something a second chance can really change your perspective on it. The month of May saw a lot of excitement for the Final Fantasy XIV community. We got the full trailer for the newest expansion Endwalker, a look at the awesome new job Reaper, and more in the big FanFest event that went down. Final Fantasy XIV is a game I played off and on for a few years now, and every time we have one of these events where the community comes together like it's a giant party, I'm reminded why 14 is so special. It's not just the game itself either. The devs, Yoshi P and his team, have put so much love into this game, and it's so clear to see that you can't help but love it. At the FanFest, we found out that the main composer for the game, Soken, battled cancer while composing for the game's past expansion, all while the COVID-19 pandemic was going on, and no one could even visit him in the hospital. But this man is so passionate about his music and wanted to make us, the players, happy, so he continued to work from his hospital bed while battling cancer. This level of passion from the team is one of the reasons the 14 community is as passionate about the game in return. Endwalker is set to be the big conclusion to the current ongoing story arc that's been around since 8 years ago, and I'm happy I'll be there day one to see how it ends. Final Fantasy XIV is a time investment, a genuine definition of the term. but the returns for putting in that time are so rewarding that I think it's a travesty that so many aren't willing to give the game a try due to its MMO nature. It's truly a special game that's worthy of being in the discussion for the best Final Fantasy game, and I'm glad to be part of the community. Out of all the things I experienced last month, the one that took me most by surprise was Kamen Rider 01. This is my third Kamen Rider show after Kamen Rider Black and Kamen Rider Amazons, and while I like those shows, 01 blows them both away in my opinion. This show from episode 1 had me hooked, and as of this recording, I'm over halfway through it and it's somehow only getting better and better. It's set in the near future where androids known as Humagears live alongside humans and help them in their everyday lives. But someone's been going around turning Humagears into berserk monsters, and it's up to the main character Aruto to don the role of Kamen Rider 01 and get to the bottom of the attacks. Despite being a plot that's been seen a million times before, where Kamen Rider 01 really succeeds is in the execution. All the characters are lovable, the plot has some genuine twists you don't see coming, the visuals are great, and most important of all, the show has a lot of heart. I genuinely felt a connection to a lot of these characters and their struggles, and the sometimes weakly minor characters that appear often have their own engaging stories. This is without a doubt my favorite Kamen Rider show, and it feels like the stakes are somehow only going to get bigger in the second half of the show. If you ever want to get into Kamen Rider, I think I can safely say this is the perfect one to start with. I've been a fan of Evangelion for most of my life, and I've seen the anime, the sequel movie, and the rebuild OVA series all multiple times. And last month I came across a very popular unofficial manga called Evangelion Retake, which serves as a sequel to the events of End of Evangelion. It even starts off by showing what happened after the final end scene with Shinji choking Asuka on the beach. Now, normally I wouldn't include something like this, but I had to make an exception for Retake after finishing it. And supposedly this is the most popular fan-made piece of Eva media, with unconfirmed rumors that the creator of Eva himself has read it. And I can see why. The writer behind this knew the themes and characters of the series well enough to the point that if I didn't know beforehand this wasn't official, I would have believed it was. I won't go into plot specifics since it's best you go into it not knowing the premise, but it serves as, in my opinion, good closure for Shinji and Asuka's characters in particular. You of course see the other characters like Rei and Gendo, but the story is mainly focused on these two. I think one of the things I like most is that it's not always pretty. Remember, this takes place after everything they went through in End of Evangelion, and that's had some ugly lasting effects on both of them. Other than that, it's as depressing and trippy as the other Eva works, and if you're a fan of them, you should check out Retake. Just know that there's quite a few explicit scenes in it, so be aware of that going in. Retake is something I found on a whim and proceeded to binge from beginning to end, and honestly, even if it's unofficial, I felt it was a good closure to the series, more so than we've seen in any of the official endings. It's time to talk about wrestling again, or more specifically, why this past AEW pay-per-view served as a reminder to me why I love wrestling. So AEW recently had their latest pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, and it was the first pay-per-view since the start of the pandemic with a sold-out audience. And from beginning to end, it almost felt more like a party than a wrestling show. The crowd was on fire, and you can tell everyone was having the time of their lives, both fans and even the wrestlers themselves. I also held a watch party for the event in my Discord with friends, and we had a great time. I even got one of my friends invested into the show who never wanted to give wrestling a chance before. It's a common belief among many that wrestling died after the late 90s and early 2000s, and that is boring now, and 9 times out of 10, these people are talking about WWE. For those that don't know, WWE bought out their competitors in the early 2000s and became the only powerhouse company in the US, essentially having a monopoly on the business, and its lack of competition has led to stagnation in the product. Combine this with the fact many people think WWE itself is what all wrestling is due to them being the only major player in North America for so long, and I can't blame them for thinking wrestling itself has declined in quality. I even thought my passion for wrestling had died a few years back, and then I branched out into other companies like New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor, and most recently AEW. And I realized my passion for wrestling hadn't died out. WWE just sucked now, and there was still great wrestling with amazing stories, diverse styles, and characters out there. And this past pay-per-view Double or Nothing reinforced that feeling with how great it was. We saw payoffs with storylines, tense moments that saw everyone on the edge of their seats, and some nice surprises. I think watching AEW makes me feel like I'm being respected as a fan, that my intelligence isn't being insulted, they care about giving us the product we want to see, and that they're doing everything in their power to put on a show they can be proud of. All of the opposite of modern day WWE. If you're in the boat of feeling wrestling is only something you loved as a kid in the 90s or 2000s, I definitely suggest giving AEW or even New Japan Pro Wrestling a try. The industry is as good as it ever was, and the future looks bright. The final thing I want to talk about today is how we recently reached 4,000 subscribers here on the channel and my thoughts on that. First, I of course want to give a heartfelt thank you to everyone that's helped me reach this point, and I hope I can continue putting out content you love. It's not been an easy road both on YouTube itself and in my personal life. I've had this channel itself since 2006, and it actually wasn't even my first one. And I started uploading gameplay clips around 10 years ago for the fun of it, and 8 years ago is when you could say I started taking this seriously and putting out more personalized content. And for the longest, YouTube, being a content creator, was all I wanted. I didn't want to work some 9-to-5 job or have a stuffy office job. Putting out content for you guys is what I've always wanted and still want to do. But over the years, I've had to put content creation on the back burner to work a crappy and depressing 9-to-5 job to support myself and my family. Combine YouTube's algorithm taking into account how often you upload videos, among other things, along with me just not being able to find the time to do YouTube videos, and the channel has suffered greatly for it. My videos no longer pop up in the search bar, and most of my subscribers don't even see my videos pop up in their sub feeds. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, it's been past the point of demoralizing. Calling it an uphill battle is putting it lightly. Seeing literal years fly by, with smaller channels passing me by in both numbers and opportunities, second guessing myself if I'm in over my head, if people even like me, if I can do this, those around me thinking I'm wasting my time and that this is just a hobby to me, all the while battling severe depression and anxiety while working in a terrible work environment and doing my best to not let any of this show in videos and streams. But this year I forced myself to find time for YouTube, often sacrificing time with friends and relationships with those around me in the process. And while it took longer than I would have wanted, as a result, we finally reached 4,000 subscribers, a milestone that at times I honestly didn't think I'd ever reach. And waking up and seeing that number on the page say 4K felt like a ray of hope for me. So at that moment, I made a promise to myself, and now I'm making it to you guys, that I'm redoubling my efforts to give this content creation for you guys 150%. Will YouTube ever let me back on the algorithm? That I don't know. Will the channel ever get to the point of success where I can do this for a living? That I don't know. But I'm going to do my best to succeed even with the odds stacked against me. And I hope you guys stick around with me for the ride. Thanks, guys.